Hi. In class today, we learned about how to change from a fraction to a decimal to a percent. And so I want to make a short video so that I can kind of go slower. And so if you wanted, you can pause just to kind of follow along. The first thing we're going to talk about is how to change from a fraction to a decimal. If you have a fraction, like 1/4 for example, and you wanted to change it to a decimal, the thing you would do is divide it. What that means is that you would put the numerator on the inside and the denominator on the outside. 4 goes into 1 0 times because it's too big, and we can't really go any further, which is why I'm going to add 2 decimals and a 0 and continue. 4 is divisible by 10, or no, 4 goes into 10 2 times because 4 times 2 is 8. If I subtract 10 and 8, I should get 2. But we don't believe in remainders in 6th grade. So I'm going to add a 0 and keep going until I have a 0 as a difference. So we have 4 goes into 20 5 times. And because 4 times 5 is 20, we're done. And so 1/4 in decimal form is going to be 25 hundredths, just like this. So just as another example, if we had 1/5, how could we solve it? Well, first things first, we should put the numerator on the inside, denominator on the outside. 5 doesn't go into 1, but it goes into 10 pretty evenly. It goes in twice. And so my answer would be 2/10. So that's how you change from a fraction to a decimal. It will get more complicated, especially with bigger numbers, but it's important for you to remember all you need to do is divide the numerator into the denominator. The numerator should be on the inside, and the denominator should be on the outside. Okay, well, how do you go from decimal to percent? I'm glad you asked. So decimal, which is, let's say 25 hundredths. The way you do it is basically by multiplying by 100. So I would say, okay, I have 25 hundredths. I'm going to multiply that by 100. 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 1 is 5. I have my placeholder here, and then I just do it again. 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 1 is 2. If I add that together, I have 2,500 as my answer. But wait. Because we have a decimal, we need to move our decimal 2 places from the right. And so my real percent answer will be 25 hundredths is equal to 25%. And so that's how I got from my original decimal, which was up here, to my percent, which was down here, just by multiplying by 100. I'm just going to give you another example. This is going to be a slightly bigger number. So you have 125 thousandths. And again, I want to multiply that by 100. I'm just going to do the zeros quietly because you should know how to do the zeros. And then we have 1 times 5, which is 5, 1 times 2, which is 2, 1 times 1, which is 1. If I add that together, I have this, and I need to move my decimal 3 places to the left. So I'm going to move it 1, 2, 3. And that's how I know that 125 thousandths is equal to 12.5%. Pretty straightforward, not too much complications here. It's just standard multiplying by 100. All right, I want to go back now. I want to go from percent to decimal. The way I would do that is by, you guessed it, dividing by 100. So let's look at the example we had before. I think it was, oh my gosh, 125,000, or sorry, It was 12.5%. And I want to change that to a decimal. I would divide by 100. So I would go like this and divide by 100. Notice how our percent is on the inside and we're just dividing by 100 on the outside. Bring my decimal up, because that's the first thing you should do. Well, 100 doesn't go into 1, it doesn't go into 12, but it goes into 125 one time. 1 times 100 is, 100. Then you bring down the other numbers. 1 goes into 250 2 times. I'm going to bring it down one more time. Now I have 100. Oops, you can't see that. I'm so sorry. Here. And so basically I brought down the 0, and now I'm trying to figure out that 100 goes into 500 5 times. Because I'm at 0 now, I know that I'm done, and that my answer is going to be 125 thousandths. So that means that 12.5% is equal to 125 thousandths. So that's just one of my examples on how I would change from percent to decimal. If we did another one, like 25%, that's a very standard one. We just divide by 100. 25 divided by 100 would look something like this. Again, we have the decimal on the inside and the percent on the outside. And I would just add my decimals and my 0 and proceed. So 100 goes into 250 2 times. I would add a 0 and bring it down, because 100 goes into 500 5 times. And so that's how I would get 25% is 25 hundredths, just by dividing by 100. All right, so now that we're back up here, we're going to talk about how to change from a decimal to a fraction. So say I have a decimal like 3/10. The way you say it is the way you would write it. Oops, I wrote right in. I meant to write right it. So 3/10, you would write 3/10. There we go. That's how you change from a fraction to a decimal. But sometimes it's not as easy. Say we have 20 hundredths. That would be 20 hundredths, but it's not in simplest form, and so we'd have to divide it. I already told my class, but you can divide it by 2, 3, or 5. Sometimes 7 goes in, sometimes other prime numbers go in, but usually these are the 3 most common divisibility factors. So I know that these both end in 0, so I'm going to try to divide by 10. 20 divided by 10, no problem. 2. 100 divided by 10, also no problem. 10. But these are both even numbers. Can't I divide it more? If you thought that to yourself, you were correct. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And that's how I know that 20 hundredths is equal to 1/5. Because the way I say it is the way I would write it, and then I would just simplify. So hopefully this video helped a little bit more, especially for your homework. And don't worry, tomorrow we will go over it more because we'll be doing a gallery walk. But enough about that. Here is the main stuff you should know. This looks exactly like the paper we glued in on page 7. And so hopefully this video, along with page 7, helps you a little bit more on your homework. Thank you for your time.